I have actually been in showbiz my entire adult life. My dad was in showbiz. He and my mom both from Hollywood, and he was a stuntman, a motorcycle stuntman in movies. He died when my mother was pregnant with me, so I never had the pleasure of meeting him. And my brothers and sisters, of course, spoke of him very lovingly. And whenever they talked about him being in showbiz and being a stuntman, well, their eyes kind of lit up. And I think that's what my early programming was. So it seemed to be something that everybody was proud of. So I followed in that family tradition. The actual way that I got started in showbiz was before I left my hometown in Florida. And a friend of mine had met a girl from Hollywood, and she put on this dance fashion show. And even though I'm petite, she allowed me to model in it. And it was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. And right after that, I moved to Houston. And in my arrogance, I thought, well, you know, if she can do it, I can do it. And so what I did is I put on a dance fashion show, but because I was in a bigger market, I had a better opportunity. So what I did was I invited all the talent agents in Houston, which was about 3 or 4 at the time, and to my surprise, they all showed up. One of them hired me to be her assistant, and then after that, I became an agent, and I really loved it. The way that it transitioned from being a model's agent to an actor's agent was that I moved. So I moved to Dallas. It was a big move for me. And there were movies coming in there. It was when they were doing Tender Mercies, Places in the Heart, Gillies, movies like that. And that gave me my start and my opportunity, and I was able to work on the Dallas series. And it was really exciting. I was still working with models, but predominantly getting into working with actors. And the way that I shifted from being a talent agent to a casting director, so I moved to Los Angeles. I was green. Hollywood is a different world. It has its own language, it has its own culture. And in Los Angeles, I opened creative casting. And boy, it was a big success right away. I was able to work on, like I worked on a couple of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies and Born in East LA, and some of them I can't remember. I worked on a lot of indie films. In the 4 years that I owned that business, I ended up working on about 200 feature films, and I worked with like CBS on the 80s Twilight Zone remake, and I worked with Walt Disney and MGM and some of the majors, and so it gave me an opportunity to learn and to absorb. The way that I got out of casting and got into filmmaking and writing is I just had this major epiphany. I loved showbiz, but something made me realize that if I continued doing what I was going to do, that would be it for me. I mean, a lot of people would love to just make it to that level and stop there. Was consistently working, so everything was good, except it just no longer felt right inside. And I just felt like I could do more, that I wanted to do more. And so that day, I made a decision to get out of casting, sell my business, and go to film school. About a month later, I had this wonderful opportunity because David Lynch, I had the opportunity to work on his film Wild at Heart with Nicolas Cage, Laura Dern, and Willem Dafoe. And I thought, okay, this will be my last movie. I worked with him on that. I cast the extras in the small parts, and some of them were very challenging, to say the least, because David likes unusual characters. I was so excited to sort of go out with that as my last film in casting because I really admire David's work quite a lot. So I began film school, and which means I had to sort of back up a little bit and sort of start over again to a certain degree. It seemed like I had a good omen because one of the very first things that I wrote, I had an opportunity to compete in a writing competition, and I'm happy to say that I won first place, and it was really exciting. So that sort of told me something that, you know, I was definitely on the right track. So all good things come to an end, and I finished school. I graduated, got my BA, and I was a little bit confused about what to do next. So I did something strange, and I bought this old RV and an old postal Jeep, you know, the kind where the doors come back on the sides. And I hooked it up and I went traveling for almost a year. I went 16,000 miles across the United States and Canada. It made me feel very patriotic to explore my own country. I had already been to Europe and Israel and Egypt and all over Western Europe, Paris and Venice and Rome. And well, when I came back, I still didn't know what to do. So I decided to go one step further and get my master's, because my thinking was I could at least teach at the college level with a master's, and that would be very compatible with writing. And I wasn't wrong, it was. I teach at the University of West Florida. I'm bi-coastal, so I live in Los Angeles most of the year, but I also have a little house in Florida, and I live there a few months out of the year because that's where my family is, and I really enjoy being with them and being connected. I teach an advanced script writing class. One of the things that I like so much about teaching writing is helping people see their story come to life and sort of being that sounding board for them, talking about the elements of writing, the structure of writing, the elements of genre, and sort of giving them information that they may not have had before. I really, really love sharing my knowledge and my insight about writing. It's very, very fulfilling. How did Beyond Ordinary Sex come about? A lot of people ask me about that book. In order to keep myself in school, I took an apartment managing job, and one of my residents, I found out, was a call girl, and needless to say, that intrigued me quite a bit. Not only as a woman, but also as a writer. I sort of smelled the story, so to speak. And so I befriended her, and I told her what I was up to. I was very upfront and let her know that I would love to write her story. And we made an agreement, of course, that I would keep her anonymous. And so that's where the journey began. So I began my academic advancement, and I had this very unusual dichotomy going on. They took me into strip clubs, and some of their customers and some of the people surrounding them knew what was going on, but for the most part, most of them didn't know. And so that's what made the story authentic, is that I was able to follow them around and even go to Las Vegas with them on occasion and to New York with them on occasion, and really immerse myself into this story and find out what that life was really all about. You know, I've actually sold books, which is surprising because there was absolutely no marketing whatsoever. And the reason is I didn't want to become known as the person who just wrote, you know, a sexy book. I think there's a lot more to me than just that. Well, in terms of producing and being a filmmaker, my most recent project what came about in Florida, and my sister introduced me to someone and said, oh, they're looking for someone to make a documentary. And of course I perked up and I was like, tell me about it. And of all things, it was a documentary about the Oriskany. It's an old aircraft carrier. They had this big event at the National Aviation Museum. There was over 1,000 people present. I just really loved meeting all those guys. I call them my American heroes because they certainly are American heroes. I would love to read you a little excerpt, sort of just will tell you the kind of response that I've been able to get from the Oriskany. He says, a person comes back to civilian life after being aboard a ship like the Oriskany during wartime, and his family and friends have no idea what it was like or why it was such a significant time in his life, no matter how he explains it to them. This film will help in that regard. I really appreciate you being kind enough to send it to an aging veteran of a mighty warship. And that was sent to me from Roger Johnson. This is really choking me up. It's really very personal. What could I say about my personal life? I don't know. Nobody wants to talk about that. I guess I'm pretty normal. I have a great family. I love them. I love being with them. I love to exercise, you know, ride bikes, rollerblade, light hiking. I love yoga. I love to meditate. All of these things, they really help me stay grounded, and I think that's what it's about.